This story is like an obsession. She is the world's opera diva, the voice of the century, Maria Callas. He is the billionaire Aristotle Onassis. Their relationship lasted almost 20 years, in which for her was more pain and disappointment than joy and happiness. Maria's unhappy love for the richest and most influential at that time, the man in the world, cost her career, oblivion, and deep depression. Maria Callas, actually Maria Anna Cecilia Sophia Kalogeropoulou, was born in 1923 in New York to Greek immigrant parents. Already as a child, she began her studies at a music school. But the road to success began for Maria, not in America, but in Greece, where the girl arrived in 1937 with her mother and sister. Maria's big and successful career began in 1947, when she played the role of Gioconda in Verona, making a huge impression on the audience. Callas began to perform and sing on many different stages around the world, gaining more and more recognition and fame. Thanks to her immense capacity for work, talent, and eternally unsatisfied ambition, she quickly became a prima donna at La Scala in Milan and the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Callas was quite willful and behaved in theaters as a recognized opera queen. She selected only the best of the best as her partners, discarding the weak or lesser known. "I do not want my name associated with tastelessness," she repeated. There was a diva and another weakness. She craved compliments, even if they were not true. Maria, in all seriousness, wanted to hear from others that she is the best, the most beautiful, and unique. And the singer was also very afraid of becoming a beggar again. The burden of organizing Maria Callas's professional life actually rested on the shoulders of one man. Giovanni Battista Meneghini was a great connoisseur of opera and a wealthy Italian businessman. He took on the role of impresario of the famous singer, and in 1949, he became her husband. Giovanni Battista was not tall and much older than Maria. Years later, the opera singer admits that she loved Giovanni, as a daughter loves her father. But here, Giovanni always treated Maria as a beloved woman and did not allow her to spend time on socializing, jealously guarding her from unnecessary attention. In the second half of the 1950s, Maria's popularity began to fade. However, the singer still lived, slept, ate, moved, and breathed only with thoughts of her arias, but only until she met Onassis. Their first meeting took place at a party, organized just in her honor. Onassis approached Callas, kissed her hand, and said in Greek, "My lady, you remind me of a Greek goddess. That's exactly how I imagined you. I am honored to meet you. I hope we meet again." From that very minute, wherever Callas went, Aristotle always appeared next to him. He showered the singer with compliments and huge bouquets of roses, flowers delivered to her constantly, in the apartment where she stayed, in the restaurant where she dined, in the dressing room before evening performances. Meanwhile, Aristotle Onassis was not free. In 1946, he married the daughter of his chief rival. Athena Livanos was 17 years old on her wedding day. A year later, his adored son Alexander was born. Then daughter Christina, whom Aristotle didn't particularly want. He felt he had an heir son and didn't need another child. Busy with business, Aristotle spent little time with his family. He and his wife had an unwritten agreement that everyone would have their own life. And now, in the life of the successful and wealthy Aristotle, appears the magnificent opera singer, Maria Callas. In the summer of 1959, Onassis invited Maria Callas and her husband to a cruise on his yacht, Christina, on the Mediterranean Sea. Maria wanted to refuse, citing work, but finally gave in. Giovanni, on the other hand, flatly refused. On board the floating palace, Onassis, worth $3 million, rested the most famous American, British, and Greek celebrities. During the voyage, Maria met Winston Churchill and his wife. Christina was a symbol of luxury. For Maria, 3 weeks of traveling on the Mediterranean Sea seemed like a paradise adventure. But most importantly, the singer was charmed by Onassis. During the trip, they behaved as if they had forgotten that they had families. Everything was happening in front of the eyes of Aristotle's official wife. Maria felt like an infinitely happy woman for the first time in her life. Aristotle was honorable towards her and adored her as much as she had always dreamed. Maria Callas's husband was surprised. He loved his wife and was willing to forgive her the resort affair. However, Maria did not want to hear about it. For the first time, she really fell in love and felt loved. She even forgot about her opera career. Onassis's wife, Athena, was also furious. She could forgive a lot of things to her husband, but not public humiliation. The case ended in divorce, after which allegedly the property of Aristotle Onassis slightly decreased. Meanwhile, Callas, in love, seemed to have completely forgotten about her own opera career, her great success, her international recognition, and her wonderful stage creations. She was not interested in new contracts and offers from the best theaters and operas. And this, as life would show, would become her fatal mistake. She would trust a man who loved acting, spending money, and enjoying everything that brought him. Maria and Aristotle were waiting for their divorce while traveling between Monaco and Athens. When journalists asked her about her affair with Onassis, the singer said, "Yes, I fell in love as an 18-year-old, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. There are rumors in the world that I fell in love with Onassis for his billions. What nonsense. I make enough money to buy a yacht like Christina. Why did you fall in love with him? Because he's the first man who treats me like a woman, not a money-making machine." Unfortunately, Maria's happiness was not destined to last forever. The famous singer was very much looking forward to marriage. But Onassis did not want to marry Maria. Although he continued to shower the actress with precious gifts, it was obvious that the love-passion billionaire melts from month to month. Maria seemed that everything will be fine, and they are about to play a lavish wedding with his beloved. But everything went wrong. From the ardent lover, Onassis turned into an arrogant bastard. More and more often, she was left alone in the huge and empty mansions of her favorite billionaire. While Onassis spent a lot of time with his children, trying to regain their love and involvement in their upbringing. He also began dating other women, which did not escape the attention of the press. Maria waited for weeks, but her lover not only didn't call, but didn't even return her calls. After long periods of silence, he would send another bouquet of flowers with a lovely necklace, assure her of his adoration, and come for a few days. Maria's anger would quickly turn to joy. Each reunion was a new honeymoon for her. As proof of his feelings, Aristotle once promised to buy a chateau in France, where they would both live. Maria was happy, but the chateau was bought by someone else, and the billionaire didn't even remember about it. Surrounding people were surprised by the blindness and almost fanatical love of the singer. It seemed that only Maria does not see the coldness and indifference of the billionaire. Cherished dream of the actress was the birth of a child. But when the pregnancy finally happened, Onassis did meanly and harshly. He did not like the news, and he quickly left. Maria Callas was unable to terminate the pregnancy. Their only son Homer was born too early and died 2 hours later. Maria buried him alone in a cemetery in Milan. She visited her son's grave for the rest of her life. Due to stress, the once great singer almost lost her voice. In 1965 in Paris, she was unable to sing her aria, To the End. From the former virtuosity, little remained. Since then, Callas no longer performed, giving only solo concerts. Her career was over. After the loss of her child, Maria faced increasing dilemmas. She could no longer live with Onassis, and at the same time she could not imagine life without him. She was 43 years old, had no home of her own, no family, no husband, no children. To cheer her up, Onassis bought an apartment in Paris, and in 1968, Maria learned that Aristotle is going to marry Jacqueline Kennedy, the widow of the President of the United States. It was his style. He always said he wanted everything: women, money, happiness. Why not marry the most famous widow in the world? It's hard to even say what a blow it was for her. She waited 8 years for a divorce from her husband. And when she finally got her official freedom, the man of her life marries another woman. At first, he claimed it wasn't true, that he only loved her, and that he only wanted an affair with Jacqueline for PR. But the billionaire was lying. In fact, he was already married to Jacqueline Kennedy. Maria had a nervous breakdown. She stopped leaving the house, began to take sedatives. Eventually, the singer was hospitalized after an overdose. In her heart, there was still hope that Aristotle would abandon Jacqueline, because the amounts she could spend on purchases annoyed him. But nothing of the sort happened. In Greece, it is openly said that the Onassis fortune is cursed, that this money has not made anyone happy, that it brings misfortune. Even when viewed with a completely objective eye, it's hard not to be horrified. A few years after his marriage to Jacqueline, Onassis's favorite son, Alexander, the main successor to his father's business, dies in a plane crash at the age of just 25. Aristotle himself turned off the machine that artificially kept his son Alexander alive. And by the way, it was Jacqueline who suggested that day that Alexander sit at the wheel of his father's airplane. A year and a half later, Onassis's first wife, Athena, dies as a result of an overdose. Onassis himself does not feel well and faints after the death of his son. He dies at the age of 69. All the property is inherited by his daughter, Christina, but she too is soon gone. In March 1975, Onassis's health deteriorated badly. Maria could not stay with him because his official wife was with him. But when Jackie was not around, Artemis, Onassis's sister, informed Maria that she could come. Thus occurred their farewell. Aristotle had been unconscious for 5 weeks. The Greek woman, looking at the love of her life connected to every possible device, whispered that she would never leave him and would love him forever. Aristotle Onassis was buried next to his son's grave on the small island of Scorpios. One of the most luxurious yachts of its time, owned by Onassis, was left to rust on a dock because there was no one else to maintain its condition. Maria continued to suffer, plunged into agony from longing for her lover and loneliness. In the last years of her life, the opera diva sought deliverance in illicit drugs. On September 16, 1977, at the age of 53, she was found in her own bed. It was officially reported that a heart attack had occurred. According to her last will, the singer's ashes were scattered around the Ionian island of Scorpios, where Aristotle was buried. In the end, she promised her lover that she would never leave his.